There is a pair of jeans sitting in almost every petite woman's closet right now that does the exact opposite of what she needs it to do. It pulls at the ankle. It bunches at the hem. It gets hemmed and re-hemmed until the proportions are all wrong, and somewhere along the way, she quietly starts believing that jeans and trousers just do not work on her frame the way they seem to work on everyone else. That belief is wrong, and today I am going to prove it to you piece by piece. Because across town, another petite woman over 60 is standing in front of a mirror in a pair of trousers that make her legs look longer, her waist look defined, and her whole silhouette look effortlessly elevated. Same height, same frame, sometimes even the exact same budget. The only difference is that she knows which 10 cuts were actually built with her proportions in mind, and which ones were never going to work no matter how many times she had them altered. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which 10 cuts belong in your closet, why each one works specifically for a petite frame, and exactly what to look for the next time you are standing in a fitting room deciding what to buy. This is one of the most requested topics on this channel, and I am not holding anything back. Welcome to Elegant After 60. This channel exists for exactly one reason: to help you look and feel like the most confident, radiant, beautifully dressed version of yourself at every single age. If you have not subscribed yet, I need you to do it right now, before you get absorbed in these 10 cuts and forget. This channel grows because women like you decide to bring it with them, and every single subscriber tells YouTube that content like this deserves to reach more women who need it. Before we get into it, I want you to do something for me. Drop a comment right now and tell me your height and your single biggest frustration with jeans or trousers. I read every single comment, and I promise you, this comment section genuinely shapes what I bring you next on this channel. And while you are down there, smash that like button as hard as you possibly can. This video has the potential to be one of the biggest this channel has ever released, but only if enough of you engage with it in the first few hours, because that is exactly how the algorithm decides who else gets to see it. So like it, comment on it, and if you have not already, subscribe and turn on that bell right now. Every single action you take in the next 30 seconds helps this video and this channel reach thousands of women who are standing in the exact same fitting room frustration you have felt. Let us get into the 10 best jeans and trouser cuts for petite women over 60. Cut number 1. The high-rise straight-leg jean. The single most reliable cut on this entire list. If you take nothing else away from this video, take this one. A high-rise waistband sits above the natural waistline, and stylists call the effect this creates the leg extension principle. By raising the waistband, you are visually moving the starting point of your legs higher up your torso, which instantly makes your legs read as longer, even though your actual height has not changed at all. Paired with a straight leg, rather than a skinny or a flared cut, this jean creates one clean, uninterrupted vertical line from hip to ankle. There is no taper pulling the eye inward, and no flare adding width at the bottom. It is simply one long, continuous line, and that line is what makes petite women look taller in photographs and in person alike. Look for a rise that sits comfortably above your belly button, not one that gapes at the back when you sit down. The most flattering washes for this cut are a rich indigo or a deep black, both of which read as more elevated than a faded, distressed wash. What ages and shortens this cut instantly is excess fabric pooling at the ankle. If you buy this jean, and it is even slightly too long, get it hemmed. That single alteration changes everything. Once you have mastered the straight leg, there is a completely different silhouette that solves a problem the straight leg cannot, and it might surprise you how much more forgiving it actually is, through the hip and thigh. Cut number 2. The cropped wide leg trouser. Structure with room to breathe. A lot of petite women avoid wide leg trousers entirely, believing that more fabric automatically means less flattering. That belief misses one crucial detail, which is the crop. Stylists call this the ankle reveal technique. By cropping a wide leg trouser at or just above the ankle bone, rather than letting it fall to the floor, you expose the narrowest part of the leg, which instantly balances out the volume of fabric above it. The eye registers the visible ankle first, reads it as slim and defined, and then applies that same slimness to the rest of the silhouette, even though the trouser itself is wide. This cut works beautifully in a substantial fabric that holds its shape, a structured cotton twill or a heavier crepe, rather than something thin and clingy that will collapse against the leg and lose its architecture. Pair it with a heel or a pointed flat to keep the ankle visible and elongated. What ruins this cut on a petite frame is length. If the hem falls even slightly past the ankle bone, the entire balancing effect disappears, and the trouser starts to overwhelm the frame instead of complementing it. Now, if wide-leg trousers still feel like too big a leap, there is a middle ground cut that gives you nearly the same elegance with a much smaller adjustment period, and it happens to be one of the most versatile pieces on this entire list. Cut number 3. The tapered ankle trouser. The quiet workhorse of a petite wardrobe. A tapered trouser sits with some ease through the hip and thigh, and narrows gradually toward the ankle. Stylists refer to this as the gentle narrowing effect, and it does something genuinely clever. It skims over the hip and thigh without clinging, which is more forgiving than a fully fitted skinny cut, while still narrowing enough at the ankle to keep the leg looking proportional rather than swallowed in fabric. This cut works exceptionally well for petite women because it avoids the two extremes that cause the most trouble, which are excess volume at the ankle and overly tight fabric that can emphasize rather than smooth. Look for a slight break at the ankle, not a full pool of fabric, and a fabric with a bit of structure, a pant knit or a stretch twill, that holds its narrowed shape throughout the day, rather than sagging by the afternoon. What to avoid here is sizing up to accommodate the hip and thigh, which will only add unnecessary volume at the ankle where you need it least. Buy for your waist and hip, and let a good tailor take in the length if needed. There is another category entirely that has quietly made a comeback, and it might be the one you have been avoiding the longest, for reasons that no longer apply the way they used to. Cut number 4. The slight bootcut jean. Not the exaggerated flair of decades past, but something far more refined. The word bootcut can bring back memories of a much more dramatic silhouette from years ago, and understandably, a lot of women steer away from it entirely. But the modern version of this cut is far more subtle, and it solves a specific problem that a lot of other cuts create. This is what stylists call the proportion balance trick. A jean that is fitted through the hip and thigh and releases into just a slight flare from the knee down creates balance between the upper leg and the lower leg. On a petite frame especially, a flare that begins higher, right around the knee rather than lower at the calf, elongates the leg by extending that line of movement further up the body. Look for a flare so subtle that it almost reads as straight when you are standing still, and only becomes visible when you walk. Anything wider than that risks tipping back into the exaggerated look from decades past. This cut works beautifully with a slight heel, which continues that elongating line all the way down to the floor. Now, we have covered several cuts that work through line and proportion, but there is a fabric category that changes the entire equation, and it might completely shift how you think about trousers with volume. Cut number 5. The fluid palazzo pant. Volume that moves instead of adds bulk. Palazzo pants have a reputation for overwhelming a smaller frame, and on the wrong fabric, that reputation is well earned. But the secret that changes everything is what stylists call the drape over volume principle. A palazzo pant in a lightweight fluid fabric, a soft crepe, a silky viscose, a fine jersey, moves and falls with the body rather than standing away from it stiffly. That movement is the entire difference between a pant that swallows a petite frame and one that elongates it beautifully. The second non-negotiable detail here is rise and waist definition. A high-rise palazzo, worn with the waistband clearly visible rather than hidden under a loose top, establishes exactly where your waist is before the fabric begins to flow outward. Without that anchor point, the volume has nothing to balance against and will simply overwhelm you. What to avoid entirely is a heavy, stiff fabric in this cut. A cotton canvas palazzo pant will stand away from the body and add width in exactly the places a petite frame does not need it. Fluid fabric is the entire key to making this cut work in your favor rather than against you. There is a cut that has become genuinely trendy in recent seasons, and it might be the one that surprises you most on this entire list, because it seems to break every rule we have discussed so far. Cut number 6. the barrel leg jean. Why the newest silhouette can actually work beautifully on a petite frame. The barrel leg jean curves outward from the hip and tapers back in toward the ankle, creating a rounded, almost sculptural silhouette through the leg. On paper, this sounds like exactly the kind of cut that could overwhelm a smaller frame. But stylists have found that the curved taper actually works in favor of petite women through what is called the visual anchor effect. Because the leg narrows again at the ankle, the eye still reads a defined endpoint, the same balancing mechanism we saw with the cropped wide-leg trouser. The key to making this cut work on a petite frame is scale. Look for a moderate barrel shape, not an exaggerated one, and keep the rise high to maintain that leg lengthening effect we have talked about throughout this entire video. Pair it with a fitted top, since this cut already introduces volume through the leg, and a loose top on top of a loose leg will remove any sense of shape entirely. What to avoid is an oversized barrel cut with a low rise, which combines two elements that both work against a petite frame simultaneously. Keep the rise high and keep the barrel shape moderate rather than dramatic. Now, for a completely different mood, there is a trouser cut that reads as the most timeless, most quietly elegant option on this entire list. And it works for nearly every single occasion a petite woman over 60 might need to dress for. Cut number 7. The straight leg tailored trouser, worn to the floor with a heel. This is the cut that a lot of stylists consider the single safest, most universally flattering trouser for a petite frame, precisely because it relies on one uncomplicated principle. Stylists call it the continuous column effect. A straight-leg trouser, tailored closely through the waist and hip and falling in one uninterrupted line to a hem that just grazes the top of a heeled shoe, creates one long, unbroken column from waist to floor. The heel here is doing real structural work, not just a stylistic choice. It lifts the hemline just enough that the trouser skims the shoe rather than pulling against it, which keeps that column completely unbroken. This cut works in a wool blend for cooler months and a lightweight crepe for warmer ones, and it transitions seamlessly from daytime to evening simply by changing the top and the accessories around it. What to avoid is buying this trouser to wear exclusively with flats. Without the added height and the hem grazing correctly, this cut can pull at the ankle exactly the way an ill-fitting straight-leg jean does, undoing the entire effect this silhouette is built around. There is a shorter, more relaxed cousin to this trouser that deserves its own place on this list, because it solves for the days you want comfort without sacrificing an ounce of polish. Cut number 8. The culotte, or wide leg crop. Comfort with real architecture. A culotte sits somewhere between a skirt and a trouser, wide through the leg and cropped above the ankle, and it has become one of the most requested silhouettes among petite women who want ease without looking undefined. This works through what stylists call the movement without volume overload rule. Because the culotte is cropped, it avoids the pooling problem that plagues so many wide leg cuts on a petite frame, while still offering the same freedom of movement. The detail that makes or breaks this cut is where it falls relative to your leg. Aim for a crop that hits right at or just above the narrowest point of your ankle. Exactly the same principle we discussed with the cropped wide leg trouser earlier in this video. A pleated front adds a small amount of structured volume right at the waist, which, paired with a high rise, keeps the whole silhouette looking intentional rather than shapeless. What to avoid is an overly long culotte that falls past the ankle, which reintroduces the exact pooling problem this cut is specifically designed to solve. Precision at the hem is everything with this one. Now, for the 9th cut on this list, we are returning to denim, but with a silhouette that a lot of petite women have unfairly written off. Cut number 9. The structured high-rise skinny jean. Not what it used to be. Skinny jeans earned a difficult reputation over the years, largely because early versions of this cut were often thin, overly stretchy, and prone to bagging out by midday, which is genuinely unflattering on any frame. But a well-constructed, structured skinny jean, with real recovery in the fabric and a high rise, is an entirely different garment. And stylists point to what is called the seamless line principle to explain why it still belongs in a petite wardrobe. Because the jean follows the natural line of the leg all the way down, without any additional fabric or taper interrupting that line. It creates the same uninterrupted vertical effect we have discussed throughout this video, just through a closer fit, rather than a looser one. Paired with a longer tunic or a structured blazer that hits at the hip, this cut looks polished rather than dated. The fabric quality here matters enormously. Look for a jean with genuine structure and recovery, one that holds its shape through a full day of wear, rather than stretching out and sagging by the afternoon. A poor quality skinny jean is what gave this entire cut its bad reputation in the first place, and a well-made one deserves a second look. And now, the 10th and final cut on this list, and it might be the most elegant, most quietly dramatic option we have covered today. Cut number 10, the subtle flare trouser, worn at the natural waist. This is not the exaggerated bell-bottom of decades past. This is a much more refined, adult version of the same idea, and stylists call the principle behind it the extended vertical sweep. A trouser that fits closely through the hip and thigh and releases into a gentle flare beginning around the knee, creates a long, sweeping line that continues the leg's natural shape rather than interrupting it, the way a straight hem sometimes can. This cut works exceptionally well at the natural waist rather than a lower rise, since the higher waistline anchors the proportion before the flare even begins. Choose a fabric with enough weight to let the flare fall gracefully, a substantial pant, or a mid-weight wool crepe, rather than something too lightweight that will lose its shape and look limp rather than intentional. What to avoid is pairing this trouser with a flat, low shoe, which shortens the entire line this cut is designed to create. A slight heel peeking out beneath the flare keeps the proportion working exactly as intended. Let me bring all 10 of these together, because here is what connects every single one. The high-rise straight-leg jean and its clean, uninterrupted vertical line. The cropped wide-leg trouser that reveals the ankle to balance its own volume. The tapered ankle trouser that skims without clinging. The subtle boot cut that extends the leg's line with the gentlest possible flare. The fluid palazzo pant that moves instead of overwhelms. The barrel leg jean that curves out and tapers back to create its own visual anchor. The floor-length straight trouser that becomes one long column with the help of a heel. The culotte that trades pooling fabric for cropped, architectural ease. The structured high-rise skinny jean that finally earns back its place in the closet. And the subtle flare trouser that sweeps the leg line outward and downward in one continuous motion. Every single one of these cuts works because it understands the exact same underlying truth. A petite frame is not a limitation to hide or apologize for. It is a specific set of proportions that respond beautifully once you know exactly which lines, which rises, and which hem lengths are working with your body instead of against it. Now I want to hear from you directly, because your input genuinely shapes this channel more than you probably realize. Which of these 10 cuts is already hanging in your closet without you fully appreciating how well it works for you? And just as important, what topic do you want me to cover next on this channel? Tops? Outerwear? Shoes for a petite frame? Tell me in the comments below right now, because I read absolutely every single one, and some of the very best videos on this channel started as a suggestion left in a comment section exactly like this one. If this video gave you even one new way to think about the jeans and trousers in your closet, I need your help, and I need it right now, before you move on to the next video. First, hit that like button immediately, right now, before you forget. This channel is genuinely growing, and every single like tells YouTube to put this video in front of more petite women, exactly like you, who have been struggling with the same fitting room frustrations for years. Second, share this video with a friend the moment you finish watching it. The one who has said for years that jeans just do not work on her frame, when really, she has simply never been shown which 10 specific cuts were built with her proportions in mind. Send it to her right now, and tell her to watch every single minute. Third, and this matters more than almost anything else, subscribe to Elegant After 60 if you have not already, and make absolutely sure that bell is turned on. This channel only grows as far as the people watching it decide to carry it forward. If even one cut on this list changes how you shop this week, subscribing is how you make sure you never miss the next video, and how you help this channel reach thousands more women who are standing in that same fitting room, feeling exactly the same frustration you used to feel. And here is something worth knowing before you click away. I am already planning next week's video, based on what so many of you have been asking for in the comments. And it is going to go deep into exactly the kind of practical, honest style guidance you have come to expect from this channel. If you are not subscribed, you will miss it completely the moment it goes live. So do not let this be the last time we do this together. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. Go take a look at your closet and notice which of these 10 cuts you already own and which one you are finally ready to add. Stay elegant, stay present, and I will see you in the very next video.